Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Chester Relton. This is my wonderful and dear friend Adrian Gostick, also my co-author. We're delighted to be here live with you on LinkedIn, and our community that we just has just started to explode. You know, Adrian, we have 1,300 members of the CultureWorks.ai.
Well, see, that's how many people you have in your family. So, yeah.
I send out at least that many, holiday cards. Listen, we love this time together. You know, Adrian is posts regularly and writes regularly for Forbes magazine, and we love to take his articles and highlight them, particularly when it pertains to anxiety at work. And the whole purpose, of course, of our community is to create that safe place to talk about anxiety in the workplace. Well, this week's article is, again, Adrian, I know I'm a fanboy, brilliant, brilliant. If you're not following Adrian on Forbes, you should be. But you talk about the 8 myths around anxiety at work. And it's so funny because I'm reading through this, and of course, all our research and everything. I'm thinking, I hear this like every week.
Oh, yeah.
One of these myths pops up. So why don't you kick it off with my favorite myth, which is the first one, which is, yeah, there's a lot of anxiety out there, but not here, not
Right.
in my workplace.
Right. And the question is, first off, why would we even care about this? Why do we care if there's anxiety in our workplace? Because, we've got a lot to accomplish, right? And, if my people are anxious, well, it's their own faults, et cetera. It's not on me as a boss or me as a teammate. And the thing it is because anxiety is leading to burnout. And as you know, Chess, everywhere we go, we are hearing my people are at the end of the rope, aren't we? It's just so much. 2.5 years of pandemic worries, and now we're working hybrid, and there's just so much stress and pressure. Well, how do you deal with this? Well, the first thing is you start acknowledging it, which, again, this the first myth is people say, no, it's not really happening here. Because if it was, my people would tell me, wouldn't they? They would tell me, because they tell me about everything. You should hear some of the stuff they tell me about, except for mental health, right?
Right. Because it's verboten, I always love, one of the reasons we wrote the book was your son, Anthony, who said, my generation, we talk about it all the time. We start every conversation. How you doing? How's your mental health? And yet our generation, we would never talk about that. So it's not surprising that, our generation still are a lot of the bosses, right? Saying, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
But not here. And my people love me and they feel safe enough to talk to me about. So go into it's along that line. I'm the boss. That's not my job to fix that.
Right.
That's a personal thing. That's a personal thing.
And you know what? 3 or 4 years ago, we would have probably told you, you're right. It's, that leave your personal life at the door. Here's what you need to do as a boss is set a vision. Now, as you and I work with, we're both executive coaches, we tell leaders the number one challenge you have is to be empathetic, not to inspire people, not to give them vision, et cetera. It is to be empathetic with their personal issues as they come into the workplace. So, and as we mentioned in the article, 9 times out of 10, people just want you to listen, right?
Yeah. And that's such an easy thing to do. And yet, how often do we as leaders jump right in with the solution?
Yeah.
Oh, I read about this. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you called the 800 number? Have you downloaded the Calm app? Which, by the way, are all good things to do. It's just that when people finally feel safe, they don't want the remedy. They just want a listening ear. I love all the people that tune into our show. It's 15 minutes and we do it pretty quick. But, Lovina, thank you so much for tuning in. Rima, we've got Parveen, who's tuned in as well. Nadir, Natalie, Collis, Shivali. I hope I said that right, Shivali. So we really appreciate you all tuning in. And if you've got any comments or questions, please put it in the chat. Experiences that maybe you've had in talking about mental health in the workplace, or when you had a trusted boss. And Abir Kasim, all the way from Jordan, tuning in. Thanks so much for tuning in, Abir. Well, let's jump to number 3. And this, again, I think is a generational thing. I mean, you tell me what you think, Adrian, but this idea that we're coddling these.
Oh, yeah.
It's, that you should leave that stuff at home. Just work is work. And I don't want to know about the bad stuff. Yeah. I just want to know, did you get the report done? Right.
Yeah. I was presenting a few weeks ago in Boston. And so I'm talking about this subject as part of a talk on culture. And one of the senior leaders, the vice chair of the company says, I think this is BS. He says, these people, they just being mollycoddled. And it was interesting. I just sort of opened it up. I said, what does everybody else think? 200 people in the room. And he was basically shouted down by his people. He's the vice chairman. And people told him, Mike, you're up in the night. If you are not seeing this, you're not paying attention. And the point is, they don't want to be mollycoddled. It's just younger people work in very different ways than we. And what we're showing, our research for anxiety at work showed that about 40% of people in their 20s have a full-blown anxiety disorder. I mean, imagine 40% of people who work for you in their 20s have broken legs, but we don't talk about broken legs here, or we don't really address it because that's their own problem. Would that change the way that your workplace is done? Yeah, if people are having to work around that, well, we've got to start addressing it and realize this isn't mollycoddling, that most people with anxiety are very smart. In fact, the human brain isn't wired to keep us happy. It's wired to keep us safe. And so the smarter you are, the more that you're seeing threats on the horizon, the more anxious you're likely to be.
Yeah, top performers, tend to be that way, right? It's interesting. I'm kind of monitoring the chat while we're chatting here, and Umair says, "Hey, I love the orange eyeglasses and the matching shirt." Umair, Adrian's glasses match his shirt too.
Yeah. What's up with that?
Yeah, come on. Well, why wouldn't you comment on that? Anyway, it is interesting, that generational difference. Now, you get into your next myth, is that all young people are perfectionists. Obviously, whenever you say everybody is, it's never going to be true, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit, though, about perfectionism. It's one of yours and mine favorite topics when it comes to creating anxiety.
Now, perfectionism, as I mentioned, it's a real issue. It affects a lot of people. But as I've interviewed a lot of younger people lately, they say, look, what we're talking about is we want to be valued. And then when the boss starts showing us our value, that perfectionism starts melting away. And the point is, that's gratitude, right? You and I we've written a book, Leading with Gratitude, on this. It's one of those characteristics that leaders aren't very good about, but in many cases, they kind of think they are. And the point of gratitude, it's not just thanking people for what they've done, but helping them see their worth as a human being, as a colleague. And what we found is in all these interviews with younger people is if they don't get that validation for the work they've done, they'll try it a different way next time, in a different way, incredibly unproductive.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I want to take a little deeper dive on this one with you, Adrian, is this perfectionism. Try it again and again. I'm not going to let my boss down. I put a lot of pressure on myself. Just a little while ago, I was at a conference and we were talking about anxiety. And I said, how many of you have somebody on your team that's just extraordinary? I mean, just kills it every assignment. And, everybody puts up their hand. And I said, and what do you do with those people on your team? And they go, load them up.
Yeah.
It's not the 80-20 rule. It's the 99-1 rule. We've got 10 people on our team. We really only need Susan, because she does so much great work. The idea, too, that these perfectionists, these high performers, they're good at hiding their anxiety, aren't they, Adrian? So, give us a couple of tips on how you spot anxiety in your top performers that never seem to be ruffled. They always get it done. And there's issues there, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things you're looking for are changes, because unfortunately some managers go, I can spot it when somebody has anxiety. They talk really, really fast and they're fidgety. And some people get quieter when they have anxiety. They get slower in their motions. They're not sleeping. They're not doing well, and so we really don't know. All we know is when somebody changes their behavior. So for example, if I'm working with Chester and he's always the first to offer up an idea in a meeting and he's been quiet for a few weeks, then I know that's a change. Or if I'm working with Susan and she's always on time, but something is making her come in a little late, that's a change. And what we say is, I noticed that, usually you're the first here to open up the office. You've been a little late lately. Is everything okay? And what does I notice mean, Chess?
It means I care. I'm paying attention. I also like to say, hey, I've noticed. What can I do to help?
Yeah.
You're offering help. And you always make the great point where you say, start with things at work, because you're at work. And that will lead people to feel comfortable enough to talk to you about other issues. We just posted up on the chat box there, LinkedIn user said, hey, managers and supervisors have been great when I say I need a mental health day. Once was just the stressors of work. The other was a divorce. I have an executive that I coach, and she hid from her workplace for a year and a half that she'd been divorced because
Oh,
it wasn't safe. And what I love about the end of this comment is they didn't ask much questions other than that for my well-being. So,
right.
you don't want to say, so what is it? So it's a divorce. Well, how did that happen? Who's at fault? You don't need the details. You just say,
Nope.
look, that's hard.
Yeah.
You need a mental health day. That's great. That's a great culture. So
Yeah.
LinkedIn user, be grateful for that. There are a lot of places where you couldn't do that, and clearly it just wouldn't be safe. Well, let's keep going through our 8 myths here. They don't want to be a part of our family. If you're going to be
Yeah.
anxious and you're going to be weak and you're going to be, then you're just not going to fit in, right? Talk about that
Right.
for a
Part
second.
of our family. And it's like,
Yeah.
first off, you're not a family, you're a team. And if somebody doesn't want to be a part of your happy hour after work, it's okay if they're doing good work. Because some people who are anxious, that kind of behavior makes them extremely anxious. Some people we've interviewed, I mean, the birthday party kind of thing. No, come on in. That may make them anxious. So get to know your people. Sometimes we used to do that. Let's go around the room. Let's make everybody embarrassed. Tell us something embarrassing about yourselves.
Yeah.
You have to start, thinking about things in maybe a little different way. And you're going to keep and attract some really good people if you just think a little bit more about how you're inclusive with these folks.
Yeah. It is so interesting. We project so often that, well, I love this. Of
Yeah.
course, you'll love this. We all like going for drinks at the end of the day. Well, you might have somebody that's, in, recovery.
Yeah.
And the last place they want to be is in a bar, and on and on. I mean, you and I have had this situation, right? Where I love going to banquets and meeting people, and you just as soon kind of, well, just tell me about it, take notes, you know. Isn't it interesting? I love this comment by Sandhya. I found that what can I do to help works best when we give some options. What I see that might be, meaning that they know what the choices are and hear them. That's a great. Thanks for chiming in there, Sanjay, because it gives some people some options. Hey,
Yeah.
what would you think if we did this and this, or changed your schedule, or whatever? Now you're opening up possibilities, and how can I help, and where are we
She's
going?
exactly right. Because a lot of times people just don't know what could happen. And so it's like, I have this issue, but I love the way Sandra's saying there is that, yeah, we can change your schedule. We could, do you need a couple of days mental health break? Can I refer you to our EIP? There are things that can help, and you start the conversation. Love that.
Yeah. Okay, so Adrian, we got like 2 minutes to go here. So this is
Yeah.
the lightning round. We got 3 to go. So anxious people won't be able to deal with our customers.
And absolutely not. In fact, anxious people have more empathy typically because they've been through so much in their lives. They typically are extremely, positive with your customers and very empathetic. Customers love that.
Absolutely. Okay, people who have secure jobs have no reason to be anxious, Adrian.
Well, security is no longer, even working for the government nowadays is no longer secure. So, realize that anxiety doesn't always necessarily correlate with everything that's very logical. That people may be worrying. Give them reasons to be more secure. Let them know how valued they are and that they have a secure future as much as you can promise that. You can't say, oh, you'll be here forever, Chester. But you can say, this is how we value you and this is where we see you moving in your career.
I can just imagine you're going to be here forever. Really? I really don't want to be here forever.
Yeah.
And then lastly, stress is a motivator.
Oh yeah. When we've seen this, right? We've all known about it. We've seen the TV story, maybe of the mom who lifts the Pontiac off her trapped family member. Stress for short periods can create great motivation. The thing is, it doesn't last long. And that's one of the problems is that it burns us out over time and it doesn't take long to burn us out. So if you're in a 911 culture where every day is stressful, you've got to bring that stress down. And again, in anxiety work, we talk a lot about that, how you deal with overload, balancing jobs, bringing people off the front lines now and then. There's a lot of ways that you can do this.
Absolutely. Well, it's the Forbes article. It's Adrian Gostick. It's a must read. He's a must follow. We're so grateful for the cultureworks.ai, our wonderful community where we've created a safe place to talk about anxiety at work. And I just want to say, I'm going to miss somebody here, but Thanks, Natalie, Sithramu, Pankaji. I'm going to butcher these names. Collis, Joe, Rima, Lovina, Praveen, Umer. Listen, Sandhya, who contributed. Joe is in the house. Umer, listen, thanks for tuning in. We hope that you're able to carve out your niche where you work, where you feel safe to talk about mental health, that you're taking care of yourself. And if you want a community that'll help you with that, please tune into the Culture Works AI. I'm Chester Elton, but the brains of the operation is without question Adrian Gostick. Our book is Anxiety at Work. We're delighted that you spent a little time with us today. Have a great day. And as you always say, something about mental health, Adrian. Wrap us up.
Well, have a great mental health day. And until next time, we wish you the best of mental health.
See you guys.